Bob Iger has not been having a good time since returning to the Walt Disney Company as the CEO. The man never left, though. He was secretly a consultant, still hiding out in his office at Burbank, never giving it up to Chapek, who took over. But now we're finding out that things are getting far, far worse for Bobby. Indeed, we now have a scoop, a rumor, coming to us straight from one of your favorite non-YouTubers out there. He tells us that, guess what? The big-time people behind the scenes at the Walt Disney Company and beyond, they're telling Bob Iger to shut it. All right, folks, welcome back to another day here at the WDW Pro channel. What a joy it is that you have elected to join us. We appreciate you entrusting us with your time, and we aim to take that trust and use it well. That's right, we have an attitude of gratitude for each and every one of you out there. And if you wouldn't mind, folks, you might consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And when you click it, you stick to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Today, we are going to take a look at a new rumor which has come out from one of your favorite non-YouTubers who has a scoop about Bob Iger and the story that says, well, Bob is being told no more talkie. No more talkie about the strike, not the writer's strike, not the Hollywood strike, not no other strike. Bob, shut it. And if you've been paying attention, folks, you may recall that some of these shareholder meetings from the Walt Disney Company, they've looked far, far different than anything we've ever seen before. They're unprecedented. The Comcast earnings report that just came out, totally normal. Looked just like a normal company, looked very happy, very productive, hey, we're making progress. We're earning you guys money. Meanwhile, it's like a food fight in a middle school cafeteria every time Bob Iger shows up for an earnings call. And this one that's coming up soon, well, it's not going to feature Christine McCarthy, the long-term CFO, who was the one who ousted Bob Chapek and brought Bobby Iger back with the institutional investors. Now, apparently, people are saying to Iger behind the scenes, and not small people, not your random, normal, everyday Joe, but rather the big, big, big people behind the big, big, big powers that be, Bob, be quiet.
All right, so no, I got it real quick. I just got a phone. I got this phone call. Same guy that I've talked about works in Burbank, and two things. One is that he told me that the edit. I guess it was an editorial or news. I don't know if it was on the news side or the editorial side, but the article that you and VR and other people talked about on different channels related to the Wall Street Journal. So apparently, they knew this was coming down the pike and couldn't stop it. So that's the first thing.
Well, give us some context real quick, Mike. What are we talking about in terms of the Wall Street Journal? What did it say?
Oh, it was the one that talking about woke about Iger.
Okay, so Disney knew that was going to be hitting them then.
So there's two Wall Street Journal pieces. One talking about how bad of a time Iger is having, and then the second one was an opinion piece that said wokeness hobbles Disney.
No, it was the wokeness piece.
Yeah,
and so that's the first. The second one has to do with some phone calls that were made by agents, very powerful, very large agencies in and around the Hollywood sphere, specifically in Southern California. Calls were placed to Disney senior executives on the film side, asking if a message could be relayed to Bob Iger to please not make any negative comments about talent while the strike is in motion, because apparently some of these agents got very heated calls from their talent. Now, I can't tell you which agencies and I can't tell you which talent, because the person that told me this was one of a few people that knows this.
And I make a guess, Mike, and you just make a face for me. Is it Mark Ruffalo?
Wow.
I'm willing to bet that it's too.
Human manifestation of Wonder Bread.
I'm willing to bet that a good portion of people who still work for Disney entering that upper echelon of actors are probably pissed.
It's actually what you said. It was not one agent representing one talent. It was several calls were made to several executives that Bob needs to not make disparaging comments to talent. And the thing about Hollywood agents is that they're in a very interesting position because they're supposed to be representing their talent while this union strike negotiation is happening. But in reality, anyone that knows how agents really work really realizes that agents work as much for the studios as they do for the talent. And if more than that, they actually work for themselves, as evidenced by so many agents that don't bring a lot of projects to the talent that they supposedly represent because there may not be enough money in it for the agents themselves. So there's a bit of a hierarchy to their allegiance, but with the comments that Bob made that seem to float around, several calls were made. He told me there were 4 different major Hollywood talents that contacted 3 different agents. That contacted 3 different Disney studio execs, basically saying that Bob needs to not make disparaging comments while these negotiations are in process. So,
Mike, let me ask you a follow-up on that. One of the things that I have...
By the way, this is a big deal because
yeah.
Because the agents are the ones that really, you know, we talk about the studios, Disney, board members, Iger, Kathleen Kennedy. You know, so much of what really matters, most of the money deals are happened by the lawyers and the agents in Hollywood. And I had a post-production accounting office in West LA for many, many years. And that's where the money flows. That's where the deals are made, and that's where the money flows. And so for this issue, this strike that's happening, to basically start blowing up into the public stratosphere to the point where the agents themselves are needing to flex muscle with a studio like Disney that controls so many hundreds of millions of dollars per project, billions of dollars in the aggregate, is a big deal.
Mike, follow up to that. I've got a question for you. I am hearing that some of the major players behind the scenes are beginning to wonder if Iger still has it. There's chatter now about that Iger may not be the same as the Iger that was 3 years ago. They're saying that this guy just doesn't have the secret sauce anymore. Are you hearing anything similar?
Yeah, you just stunned me, because the other part of my conversation with this person who I've known since 2005 has been in Disney for a while and isn't in our fandom stratosphere at all. Yeah, he told me the same thing. I'm a little stuttering because I was going to share that, and then you just told me you've heard that somewhere, and I haven't told you that. I think I've told you that. No, I haven't told you that. So yeah, so basically, what he told me was that between the CNBC broadcast interview, his comments on that broadcast about talent specifically, the fact that they couldn't stop the editorial, which the way he explained this to me was odd, because he seemed to articulate that in times gone by, if there was bad news coming down the pike, Disney might be able to influence whether or not that bad news actually hit the press or not. And the way he expressed this to me is that they knew that this was coming, yet it came out anyway. That is exactly what he said. Yet it came out anyways.
Well, that's something we've always been suspicious of. The fact that when Bob Iger shows up and says something, he's got all the right credentials, and all of a sudden, all the trades are eating up everything he says. After that CNBC interview, it seems like the gloves have come off. Any positive statements out of them are few and far between. THR had an article the other day that called Bob Iger angry, thin-skinned, and self-pitying.
yeah, that interview did not help his image. And that's the other thing, is all this is happening at the worst possible time for him. And I'm not surprised you guys are hearing that, because basically, we were just talking about this the other day. Actors are very fair weather, right? Of course they loved Daddy Iger back when he was taking over from Bob Chapek, because Bob Chapek was the new orange man in Hollywood. But now that he's on the other side of the line because they're striking, well, that's a strike against him. Plus, they learned that he's just going to do whatever Chapek was going to do in the first place, only worse, remember? Like, that's what they learned pretty quick. So a lot of them that thought they were going to keep their jobs after Daddy Iger came back didn't. And so I think that I'm not surprised at all I'm hearing this stuff. And we could tell just by the way he was acting during that interview. He's been probably getting bombarded by people inside the company, and now that they're probably getting crap from outside the company because of this.
Right, and continuously losing his cool.
It's so schadenfreude. Yeah.
The shareholders.
Mike, how different was the Comcast earnings call this morning versus what Disney earnings calls have been? I mean, I think that really speaks to it.
Let me answer that in a quick second. Let me just add this. And what he said is the tension is so high in Burbank. Everybody is super nervous and super tense. And especially because the earnings call is around the corner, and there's no assurances as to how that call will go, or what the contents of that call or the announcements to be made are. And he said that it's just really, really tense. Everybody's afraid to talk bad about anybody. And he said he's been there 12 years, and he said he's never seen it like this.
All right, folks, that is a wrap now. The conversation has come to a close, but the commentary begins. Please drop your comment down below. Tell us what you think. Can you believe it? Is Iger actually being silenced now? We'll find out, I guess, over time as we watch to see what kind of commentary he drops in the media, in the press, and interviews. It's not been good in the past. Maybe it gets better when Bob Iger goes silent. We'll see. Folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.